All right, so let's jump right in. In order to understand how to reduce procrastination, moving to focus and productivity, we first need to understand how our brains work. So in our brains, there's three essential parts. One part is the reptilian brain. That part consists of the brainstem and the basal ganglia, and that sits at the base of your skull. And if you can see in the diagram, that part, it's the oldest and most primitive part of the brain, and is involved with primitive drives related to thirst, hunger, instinct, sexuality, as well as habits and procedural memory. So, for example, it's like if you put your keys in the same place every day without thinking about it, or if you're riding a bike. So things that are done automatically. That's like the reptilian part of the brain. Throughout the webinar, we'll also be calling the reptilian part of the brain your lizard brain. And it's like a lizard, it likes to do many different things. Okay, so the part that's on top of that is the mammalian brain. And the mammalian brain controls and expresses emotion, your short-term memory, and the body's response to danger. The key player here is the limbic system, which is the emotional center of the brain. And its primary focus is survival, but it also seeds anger, frustration, happiness, and love. The third part of the brain, which has developed most recently, is the neocortex. So this part of the brain is most involved in human beings. And this is the area, and the area that we are most concerned about for this part of the brain is the prefrontal cortex. So the prefrontal cortex enables us to plan, innovate, solve problems, think abstract thoughts, and also have visionary ideas. The two main parts that we'll be talking about in the webinar will be the human brain, or I might say the prefrontal cortex, because I think it's kind of funny saying human brain. And then the other part that we'll be concerned with is the lizard brain. So our prefrontal cortex governs our behavior by inhibiting the primitive drives from the lizard brain when they are not beneficial to us or when they are not socially appropriate. So why do we procrastinate? If we think about procrastination, the part of the brain that's responsible for that is the lizard brain. So this ancient compelling control center, it can identify and react to discomfort or threat, whether or not the threat is real or perceived, and it doesn't allow for any time for the rest of the brain to even access the information that it's basing its decision on. So in the past, this might have given you the split-second advantage if you are running away from a saber-toothed tiger. But since then, the lizard brain hasn't changed much. Even after there's no more saber-toothed tigers, and like none of us are gonna get attacked by any wild animals for the most part anymore. But this part of the brain, it's still on duty, always looking for threats, and if it can't find any real ones, it'll have to make some up. So we procrastinate not because we are lazy. And the reasons that we procrastinate differs for each different task or each different situation. You might feel overwhelmed by a task, perhaps because you have doubts about your ability or you're worried about failing. So you put it off and seek comfort in doing work that you feel like you are capable of completing. Some people, they might fear success as much as they fear failure. So they think that success will lead to them being swamped with requests to take on more tasks. So they rather not do it. And perfectionists are often procrastinators. Often they'd rather avoid doing a task that they don't feel like they have the skills to do so, rather than do it imperfectly. And another major cause of procrastination is our poor decision making. If you can't decide what to do, you'll likely put off taking actions just in case you do the wrong thing. So all of these, they are not real threats, but our brain perceives that as threats. And so the lizard brain will then say, why don't you take it easy? Let's go do the laundry, water the plants, reply your emails, scroll through social media, play a game on your phone instead. Because all these alternate choices, they're safer options. They're not threats to you. The lizard's brain, the lizard brain, it only has one concern, which is keeping you alive and comfortable right now. So let's hear a little bit from all of you. Now that you understand procrastination just a little bit better, what do you think is keeping you from focusing on your most important task? If you are comfortable, you can type it in the chat. If not, you can also write it down on a piece of paper just for your own reference later. Emails from other people, fear of failure, distractions, feeling overwhelmed, interruptions, not being the best at it, tired and overwhelmed, too much stuff going on to remember the important stuff. Yeah, so a lot of times, we can get distracted by so many other tasks, email, maybe someone sent you a message, your boss sent you a message, so instead of doing your task, you have to reply that immediately. Or you want to do everything so well, that you don't even want to get started. And sometimes, it's difficult for us to remember if we have too many things going on. Okay, thanks everyone for sharing. So let's look at the procrastination cycle. Procrastination, it does offer temporary relief and reward. But that only reinforces the behavior and continues the cycle of avoidance. So the more times that an individual avoids the task, the more difficult it becomes to stop the cycle of procrastination. Take, for example, you have an important project that was given to you by your boss. You keep putting off the task because you think it's difficult. You do less important tasks. Maybe you decide, I'll go help my colleagues with their work. Or you realize, I've not cleaned the windows yet. And you rationalize by saying that you are being productive in other ways. So then this leads us to the third one, where the time starts drawing closer and you start saying to yourself, maybe, why am I so lazy? I should have not watched 3 hours of Friends. I should have finished a project that I just started. And then you decide, okay, you keep putting the task off because it's too big, too daunting, until you realize, oh no, I only have 1 day left. So you start doing the project and rushing, realizing you might not have everything that you need. You try to ask people for help, and people have their own things that they're busy with, so you start getting super annoyed, agitated at everyone and everything. But you manage to barely scrape through and complete the project. Might not be up to your standard, but good enough. And then you tell yourself, the fifth thought, you're like, never should I do it ever again. Why did I do this? Next time I need to start 2 weeks early. And you're like, I'll make sure I plan it out, start doing it well. However, when a new project comes, the same cycle happens again. Does this sound familiar to you? Yeah? So it sounds familiar to some of you? Okay. All right. So if the earlier cycle sounds familiar to you, you might have an occasional problem with procrastinating. But that just means that you're human, just like everyone else. I'm not sure whether you can find any person on this planet that tells you they have never ever procrastinated in their life. I mean, we all procrastinate. But what's important is learning how to shift from procrastination to focus and then to productivity. Or in other words, how do we tame the lizard brain and shift to using the human parts of our brain? So in order for us to know how to focus, we need to understand focus. And focus is something that is so important in our lives. It can help us get work done, improve our relationships, allow us to complete tasks for the day without forgetting. Yet, focusing is so difficult in this day and age. A lot of times, we bounce between inbox, we have pointless meetings, we have a million group chat notifications, and these are markers for busyness, but not productivity. So with all these tasks, they won't help us, deepen our writing practice, master a programming language, or even growing a business. And if we are not intentional about how we spend our time, our work hours will just slip towards activities known as shallow work. So what is shallow work? Shallow work is defined as non-cognitively demanding logistical style tasks. So usually like admin tasks, those tasks that are often performed while distracted. And these efforts tend not to create new value in the world, and they are easy to replicate. So deep work, on the other hand, right? This is where we put a lot of focus on one task without distractions. And this is the state that we want to achieve as well. And this concept was coined by this person called Professor Cal Newport. So he's a renowned author and computer science professor at Georgetown University. And deep work is professional activity performed in a state of distraction-free concentration that pushes our cognitive capabilities to their limit, right? And usually, when doing deep work, it's tasks that create value, improve your skills, and they are difficult to replicate. So the ability to perform deep work is becoming more and more difficult. We're having new distractions coming up this nowadays. There's always this new app, like we are having so many different emails. Sometimes we even have more than one job, and it's very difficult, but it's something that is so important for us in this day and age. Looking at the above formula, right, it applies to the most cognitively demanding tasks or deep work. And the key part of the formula is intensity of focus, which basically refers to how much concentration and focus you're putting into a particular task. So a common problem that we face nowadays is called task switching. What task switching is constantly shifting your attention from one app to another screen or to another. So, like maybe you're on Slack, then you're on your email, then you're on the report that you're trying to write. And a lot of times we don't realize, but that's actually what reduces our productivity. And when we try and multitask, our productivity can drop as much as 40%. That's like pulling an all-nighter. I'll share some statistics with you. So an average desk employee loses 2.1 hours a day because of distractions and interruptions. So in a week, right, that's equivalent to losing one whole full day of work. Imagine if we could complete all our work without distractions, then we only need to work 4 days a week. Anyway, so on average, also employees who do majority of their work on computers are distracted every 10.5 minutes. And being distracted by incoming calls or emails can lower employees' IQ by as much as 10 points. So with all these distractions, right, 44% are created by ourselves and another 23 come from emails. So this means that you have complete control to cut out or reduce at least 67% of productivity killing distractions that derail your entire workday. And this would be the number one skill that will set you apart from 99% of the world's highly distractible workers. So being able to single task, that is the number one skill that we all can hope to achieve. So now back to this, right? How do we then shift from procrastination to focus? And I won't talk that much about productivity because usually by the time we reach the time of focus, that's when we're able to become productive. So the very, very, very first step is that you need to know that you are procrastinating. you might be putting off a task because you had to reprioritize your workload. If you are briefly delaying it for a genuinely good reason, then you are not necessarily procrastinating. However, if you start to put things off indefinitely or switch focus because you want to avoid something, then you probably are. A lot of times, when we are procrastinating, we don't even realize that we are. We might be doing another task that's less important, but still makes you feel productive. Or maybe we get stuck in scrolling through social media, endless binge watching mode, or going through emails after emails after emails. Or we try to start the task, but then after 2 minutes of starting the task, we decide, I think I'm thirsty, I need to go get a drink. So this is something that you might want to take some time and reflect. It can be the thing that you shared in the chat earlier, maybe you notice, you're going through your email, so that's how you know that you're procrastinating. So it's important to start being aware of what alternative behavior you choose whenever you're faced with an important or a challenging task. So this is something that we covered earlier. The second part, right, of knowing, of moving from procrastination to focus is understanding why. Why are we procrastinating? So that you recognize, okay, what you do when you're procrastinating, then you need to understand why. So when this is where your lizard brain is at play. You can look back at the answer you've typed in the chat or written on paper and ask yourself, why are you avoiding doing your task? How does the alternative make you feel better? Or what are you running away from? And the next step. So I think many of you might have heard of the Pomodoro Technique. What we'll talk about is how do you build your focus muscle using this technique. Procrastination is a habit. So it's something that you have done for a long time. And this probably means that you can't break it overnight. Focus then is about being present. It's about being able to stay present. And in doing so, that requires a lot of work from the prefrontal cortex, or the human part of the brain. And one way to do that is through building your focus muscle. So with this technique, right, it's a very popular technique. It includes alternating sequence of 25 minutes of absolute 100% focus on the task in front of you, which means that you have to turn off all other notifications, put away all your distractions, put your phone aside, and then after that with a 5-minute rest period, which hopefully or ideally means stepping away from your computer, like moving yourself away from whatever task you're doing at that point. And then you keep repeating this. You repeat this 3 times, and on the 4th one, you take a full 10 to 15 minutes break. And when you first start this technique, your lizard brain will be at play. You might find it pretty challenging to stay focused for those 25 minutes, or you might find yourself spending 25 minutes just staring at a blank page without any ideas or motivations to get you going. So what do you do if you run into this problem? You stay right there. Don't let yourself pick up your phone or just answer one email or just check Slack. You just stay there. Because this is training. So even if you have to stare at a blank page for 25 minutes, do so. It's 25 minutes. And you can focus on what's happening in the moment. You can even observe how your body is feeling. And this might give you more clues as to why you are avoiding the task. This 25 minutes, they won't make a difference in your overall productivity for the day, but they'll make a difference in the strength of your focus muscle, or the human part of the brain. So just like a regular muscle, the more you work it, the stronger it gets. But also, one very important point to take note is your breaks are just as important as your actual work period. So make sure that you actually take your break. Another way to help you during those 25 minutes is through designing an environment that is most conducive for you to concentrate and focus on your work. This environment includes your 5 senses. So you can write things down on paper as you go along the way, just so that you can find out, okay, what's the best way for you to create your own focus environment. The first sense is hearing. So knowing whether you work in an environment that's completely silent or requires some amount of sound. If you choose the latter, there's a study by British Columbia that has shown that sounds around 70 decibels, yeah, that would be the best to keep you focused and allow you to think deeper. And it's also helpful to use sounds that do not include words. So sounds such as nature sounds, library sounds, rain sounds. And also, if possible, only listen to this playlist when you're working. The second sense is touch. So what do you need to touch to help you concentrate? Your keyboard, your mouse, your pen. Find an item that's at your workstation that you can come back to whenever you notice that your mind is drifting away. In terms of sight, reorganize your desk, create a conducive workspace where you feel ready to work. Keep your phone away if possible. So personally, for me, if I am working, I usually try and turn my phone downwards so I don't reach out to check, because I see a notification. And then for sense of smell, smells can help you focus better. Can be a candle, perfume, anything that brings you back to the present moment. And taste. So for me, I keep a cup of water or tea with me whenever I work. So this helps keep me grounded and focused whenever I notice my mind is drifting away. And the main reason to use your 5 senses is to constantly bring you back to the present moment. It trains your focus muscle, which then thickens, the prefrontal cortex. So helping your human brain then have more power in inhibiting your lizard brain. So on top of building your focus muscles, here are just some other ways to overcome procrastination. So studies have shown that self-forgiveness can help you feel more positive about yourself and reduce the likelihood of procrastination in the future. You can say to yourself, like, you were doing the best you can then, but let's try something different now. And also focus on doing the task, not avoiding. So write down the task that you need to complete and get it out of the way early. So at the beginning of the day, we still have energy, mental and physical energy to get started. So if you want to write a report, just tell yourself, let's open Microsoft Word and write 1 sentence. Usually it's the first step that's the hardest. You can reward yourself. So if you complete a difficult task on time, reward yourself with something that you enjoy. It could be a drink, could be a cake, something that makes you feel good after you have accomplished your task. Having an accountability partner also helps. So if you have a friend, a colleague, or you can even ask your boss for midway deadlines to help keep you in check. And lastly, also, changing your phrases of internal dialogues from I need to and have to, or I should, because this implies that you have no choice in what you are doing and can make you feel disempowered and not want to do your task. So instead, you can say, I choose to or I want to, which implies that you own a project. So for example, like I can say, I choose to start doing the presentation for my webinar now. Okay, so now that you know the reason for procrastinating and the strategies that you can use to reduce procrastinating, you can choose to answer either one or both of the following questions. So at work, what do you think is one thing you can do at work such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? And same question for at home. You can either type it in the chat or again, write it down on a piece of paper. Limit distractions. How do you think you can limit your distractions? Okay. Yeah, that's one step. Close your office door. Put your phone away. Okay. Keep your phone away from your working desk. Create a better workspace. So how would you create a better workspace, Kate? What is D&D? Oh, do not disturb. Okay. So like putting a do not disturb sign outside at your door. Turn off emails. Yeah, so sometimes we can even set a time, in each day to reply emails. Listen to study or focus music. Yeah, I realize that sometimes when I notice myself being super distracted, study or focus music helps. Tidy up the desk, listen to slow music. Okay. Yeah, so moving to a place where you're not always so comfortable. So sometimes in bed, we might, be working and then we might fall asleep. So being able to go to a kitchen table, go outside somewhere where you fully are focused. Learn to pick and focus on one thing at a time. Yeah. Okay. And don't interrupt your current task if you get an email. Yep. Check it after you finish your current task. Set focus time in your calendar at work. Yeah, that's another way. If you can actually schedule focus time in your calendar. And putting all notifications to sleep. Yep, that's great. Okay, so thanks everyone again for sharing. Hopefully, each of those, you have one thing that you can do after this webinar that can help you with your productivity as well. So many of us, right, now just looking at the key takeaways from what I've shared today, many of us, I think we've tried many different ways to help ourselves focus better. However, what we forget is to find out why we are procrastinating. So it's important to recognize when we are procrastinating. That's the very, very first step, to actually know when we are procrastinating, and also catch ourselves procrastinating and address the why. So just like anything else, it requires training for us to build up our focus muscle. We've been taught that multitasking is great and feel proud of ourselves doing so for years. And in order to change a habit, we have to start small and keep working our way up. And if it gets too difficult, find a buddy or even a professional if there are deeper things that need to be addressed.